Hello and welcome again to VW Feasts, and today it's chorizo pies. Yummy. And for this you will need some chopped onion, and the VW has carefully placed the things she's chopped just so you see what they look like. The fennel, there we go, some chopped fennel and some chopped bell pepper. You will also need a combination of butter and lard. You will need some form of chorizo sausage, and you'll need some pork mince, some flour, water and oil. So first we're going to make the filling. Start by heating some oil in a pan, and then once we've got it hot enough we add first of all the onions. Make sure you use all the onion and also the fennel. And just leave that in the oil just to go translucent and soften a little bit. Then to this we are going to add the peppers. And in there you go. Some of these things you won't be able to taste in the final pie, but without the vegetables it can sometimes be a bit dense, so you really want to make sure you get this, lightens it up a bit. A little bit of paprika and pepper. Lots of peas in this one, but no peas, interestingly. So, stir those round in the bowl and let them just soften off. Actually cook them for quite a bit, so that eventually you get something that looks like this. As you can see, we've really roasted those properly. So I'm going to take those and put them into our mincer or food processor or whatever you are using to combine all the ingredients. So we can go the vegetable matter, and then to that add the chorizos. Now we've used some particularly weaponized chorizos that contain Carolina Reaper chili in them. So these were hotter than we were expecting and surprised a few people. Remove the skins, you don't want those in pie, and lob them in. You might want to use things that are slightly less weaponized and don't make people bleed from the eardrums. Add in your pork mince. Again, that helps dilute the pure chorizo flavor, and then mix together. And then once you've got a nice even mixture, what we're going to do is we're going to divide it up into portions. Now we're using little bowls here. You could just roll them into balls and put them onto a baking tray, because what we want to do is just divide them into portions and then chill it back down again, so it's easier to use and to work with later. So we reckon you can make about 8 from the portions we've used here. These are man-sized pies. So stick them however you're going to do them in the fridge and let them chill down while you make your pastry. So watercress pastry, classic for pork pies and all sorts of health items. And add to cold water, we're going to add a mixture of butter and lard, or schmaltz as it's known here in Germany. And then by slowly raising the temperature and constant stirring, it will all start to combine. Of course, fat doesn't dissolve into water, but you end up with an emulsion. And it's that nice even emulsion that you're looking for as you slowly raise the temperature and keep stirring. Eventually you end up something like this, and as you bring it to the boil, you're now ready to use it. What we're going to do is we're going to add that straight to some flour. It's still very, very hot, so be careful here. We're using a wooden spoon so you don't conduct any heat. And then incorporate everything together. This is making your watercress pastry. This is a slightly more brittle and harder to work pastry than a normal short crust or a puff pastry. It's less forgiving, but the effects are spectacular when making real pies. Start bringing all that crumb together, making sure everything's incorporated. Careful you don't burn yourself and it's all cooled down properly. And then just leave to cool down properly. What we're going to do then is we'll divide it into 4 pieces. That's easy to work with. You're not working with the whole bit of pastry at once. You don't want to overwork the pastry. As I said, it's difficult to work with. What we're going to do is on a nice floured surface, just roll it out to about 5 millimeters thick. Much thinner and it will start to crack. Much thicker and you end up with a very stodgy pie. You be the judge of it and go as thin as you dare. Definitely part of a balanced diet. If you don't have enough cholesterol in your diet, this will help balance that. So we're going to do 2 assembly methods. We're going to do the rustic and the less rustic. First of all, we'll start off with the rustic. So take out a plate of your description and trace round it. So make yourself a large ring and a smaller circle of pastry. I'll show you what you're doing with these. The large one's going to form the body of it. Now don't worry if you break it as you see there. What you can do is take a little spare bit of pastry with a little bit of beaten egg and glue it back together. Important that it is watertight at the end. You don't want this sort of melting and leaking everywhere. So in goes our portion of filling. And then again, using that beaten egg as a glue, we're just going to go all the way around that pastry. And then bring it up and around the filling, sort of crimping as you're going. You can be as artful as you want with this. Important not to break the pastry and important to make sure there's no air in it. And then that lid bit, we just put a bit more of the egg wash on and on goes the lid. Again, just crimping it all together to make sure it's sealed. A hole for steam to escape. Put it on your baking tray and then you want to egg wash it for effect. So the second method, what we're going to do is we're going back to using those little pie dishes we had there, little ramekins, and using the pastry just into lining one of those. Again, pushing it in properly, right in, getting rid of all that air, making sure it's snug. In goes our filling. And then we'll just roll out this other piece to make the lid. Using the egg wash once again to seal it. Wonderful things, eggs. Who knew they could be glue? And then just trim off all the excess pastry till you get something approaching delicate. Don't get too worried because these aren't delicate. Then just crimp over the edges into something artistic. Again, making sure it's sealed. Egg wash on top. And finally, a hole for the steam to escape. I'm going to stick all those in the oven and bake them away, and then either you or your glamorous assistant can remove them once they are baked. Here are the ones that we put into the pots. And here are the more freeform ones, the sort of rustic effect. If only you could smell them. And make sure you turn off that oven afterwards. I do. And there we have them. Chorizo pie. You can have them hot with chips and peas, or cold with a picnic. But if you use the sausages we did, make sure you have a handkerchief as well. Enjoy.